I had just turned off the lights in the exam room when the call came through the back line. Another stray brought in by a local groundskeeper, limping and disoriented, found wandering behind the old chapel ruins near Route 17. I almost let it go to voicemail. After 32 years in this clinic, some nights are just too heavy. The weight of animals I couldn't save. The memories that cling to the walls like ghosts. My daughter's voice, still echoing in the hallways 5 years after her passing. Some nights, the silence is the only companion I can bear. But something about the silence on the other end, the kind that isn't empty but full of breath, waiting, listening, made me pick up. "Hello?" I said, pressing the phone closer to my ear. "This is Dr. Eleanor Shaw." The voice that answered was male, older, wavering with what I first mistook for anxiety, but later recognized as reverence. "Doctor, I found her by the old chapel. She's different. Won't come to me, won't run away. Just circling, like she's looking for something, or waiting." He paused, his breath catching. "I think she was meant for you." Those words, so strange, so certain. They should have raised alarms, but instead, they resonated somewhere deep inside me, like a tuning fork struck against bone. "Bring her in," I said, the words leaving my mouth before I could consider them. "I'll wait." But he didn't bring her, said she wouldn't get in his truck, said she seemed to be waiting for someone else. For me, the rain was soft, almost like mist as I stepped out to the parking lot. That's where I saw her. Not running, not hiding, just turning. Limping in slow, hesitant circles like she was caught in a loop only she could see. Her coat was mottled with mud, ears down, but her eyes weren't stray. They were searching, as if she recognized me before I recognized myself. I stood there, keys clutched too tightly in my hand, watching her move in that perfect, terrible circle. Each rotation exactly the same, down to the number of steps. 7. Always 7. The groundskeeper stood at a distance, his face hidden beneath the shadow of an old baseball cap. When our eyes met, he nodded once and walked away, disappearing into the darkness beyond the parking lot lights. Who leaves without checking if help has arrived? Who walks away into nothing but night and mist? I called out gently, half expecting her to bolt. She didn't. Instead, she froze mid-circle and lowered herself slowly to the ground. Not in surrender, not in fear. It felt ceremonial. A quiet offering. I knelt beside her and reached out. And in that moment, that still, weightless moment, I felt the kind of silence that follows prayers. She didn't flinch when I touched her, but her ears stayed tight to her skull, like she was hiding something. "It's okay," I whispered, my voice too loud in the quiet parking lot. "I won't hurt you." Her eyes met mine, clear amber, almost luminous in the dim light, not clouded with fear or confusion like most strays. These were eyes that knew exactly where they were, eyes that had been searching and had finally found. The rain fell harder as I coaxed her into the clinic. No collar, no tags. Her coat was matted in places, but beneath the mud and grime, her fur was an unusual color. Not quite gold, not quite silver, but something in between that seemed to catch and hold the light. Inside the clinic, I tried to offer water, but she turned her head away. Not with disgust, almost with reverence, like the bowl meant something she didn't dare approach. I noted the limp, ran my hands gently down her leg. No breaks, no open wounds, just old scarring, almost surgical in precision. She barely reacted, but when I brushed too close to her ears, her entire body stiffened. That's when I really looked, not just at her ears, but inside them. And I panicked, not visibly, not dramatically, but in the way your body knows before your mind can catch up. Deep within the canal, far past where infection would live, was a faint, unnatural shimmer. Not wax, not fluid, a filament, fused, symmetrical, like it was meant to be there, like it had always been there. I stepped back, instinctively turning off the otoscope light, and for the first time she looked straight at me, unblinking, as if we'd just shared a secret neither of us were supposed to know. What had I just seen? My mind raced through possibilities, some medical, some not. An implant? A microchip gone wrong? Or something else entirely? Something purposeful? Her gaze never wavered. It was the look of someone waiting for recognition. Did she know what was inside her? Could she feel it? That foreign thing, nestled deep where nothing should be? "What happened to you?" I whispered. She blinked once, slowly. like an answer. I should have called someone, a colleague, animal control, someone who could verify what I'd seen. But something stopped me, the same instinct that makes birds fly south, that guides sea turtles across oceans to the beaches where they were born. Some knowledge we carry without understanding. I cleaned her as best I could, documented her condition with clinical detachment in my notes. But I couldn't bring myself to photograph what I'd seen in her ears. Some things shouldn't leave evidence. That night, I made her comfortable in Observation 3, the small room at the back of the clinic where we kept animals that needed special attention. I gave her a blanket, fresh water, some soft food, all untouched when I checked on her an hour later. She sat in the center of the room, perfectly still, eyes fixed on the door, waiting. But for what? Over the next few days, I kept her in Observation 3. I named her Sela, not because I wanted to anthropomorphize her, but because the name came to me in a dream that first night, whispered in a voice that wasn't mine. It means pause and reflect, though I didn't know that then. All I knew was that she didn't sleep, not in the way dogs do. She sat, listened, and turned in circles when left alone, always counterclockwise. She feared ceiling fans, mirrors, the sound of AM radio static. And she never barked. I ran tests. Blood work, physical examination, even x-rays. Everything came back normal, except for one thing, her brain activity. The EEG showed patterns I'd never seen before. Waves that didn't match any known canine neural signature. Peaks and valleys that seemed almost coded. But what troubled me most wasn't what the tests showed. It was what they didn't. The filaments in her ears didn't appear on any scan. Not the X-ray, not the MRI. As if they existed in some frequency just outside our ability to document. By the third night, I noticed the scars beneath her fur formed patterns. Intentional. Almost like glyphs. Not random, not stitched by accident. I took photos, logged them, but every morning, they appeared different in the images, as if the patterns shifted depending on who was looking. My assistant Emily joked about me seeing crop circles, but I stopped laughing when Selah responded to the sound of the exam room door unlocking before I even touched the handle. "I swear, Dr. Shaw, that dog gives me the creeps," Emily said one morning, keeping her voice low as if Selah might understand. "The way she watches us, like she's recording." I'd noticed it too. The perfect stillness, the unblinking attention, the way her head would turn, tracking invisible movements through walls. "She's just traumatized," I said, more to convince myself than Emily. Who knows what she's been through? But that explanation felt hollow even as I said it. Trauma makes animals hide, cower, lash out. It doesn't make them watch with such purpose. That afternoon, I caught Selah standing on her hind legs, front paws pressed against the observation window, head tilted as she stared at the ceiling light. For 3 minutes, she didn't move. Then, as if receiving some silent command, she dropped back to all fours and resumed her circular pacing. 7 steps. Always 7. The 4th night, a man came by. Said he was from the Wildlife Authority, but his badge was too new, too pristine. He asked about a stray matching Selah's description. Said she might have come from a behavioral research facility. But something in his posture was wrong. Like he wasn't trained to lie, just ordered to. When I told him she'd been adopted out, he paused, smiled too wide, and left without pressing further. That smile, it haunted me. Too many teeth, too little warmth. Like something practicing how to look human. "Are you sure about this?" Emily asked the next morning, watching me check Selah's vitals. "If she escaped from a research facility, shouldn't we report it?" I didn't answer immediately. My hands moved methodically, checking pulse, respiration, temperature. All normal. Too normal, in fact. Perfect readings, every time. "I'm not sure of anything anymore," I finally said. "But I know she's safer here than wherever she came from." Emily's eyes widened slightly. "You think they hurt her?" I thought of the filaments, the scars, the perfect mechanical circles. "I think they did something to her," I whispered. Something she didn't ask for. That's when the calls started. No voices, just static. And once, a low-frequency tone that made Selah howl, the only sound I ever heard her make, not in pain, but in memory, like she was being called back. The calls came at the same time every night, 3:17 a.m., the exact time my daughter's heart had stopped beating 5 years ago. A coincidence I couldn't ignore, but couldn't explain either. The first time the phone rang at that hour, I answered with sleep-thick words. Hello? Who is this? Nothing but static. Then, beneath it, a rhythm. Not quite words, not quite music. Something in between. A pattern my ears couldn't grasp, but my body somehow recognized. From her enclosure, Sela began to howl. A sound so haunting, so human in its grief that I dropped the phone. It clattered to the floor, still emitting that terrible static. Sela's howl rose to meet it, harmonizing with the noise in ways that defied explanation. When I picked up the phone, the line was dead. But Sela continued to howl for exactly 1 minute more. Then she stopped, mid-cry, as if someone had flipped a switch. I started sleeping on the floor beside her enclosure. Bible in one hand, flashlight in the other. Every night I'd whisper the same prayer. If she was sent, let me be the reason she stays. And every morning, she'd be closer. One morning, she pressed her head to my chest for exactly 11 seconds. I counted, because it was the first time I cried in front of her. And I needed to mark the moment something changed. There was something so tender in that gesture. So deliberate. Like she was trying to console me, even though she was the one in captivity. Or perhaps she understood that we were both captives in different ways. Me to my grief, her to whatever had been placed inside her. The tears came without warning. 5 years of held-back grief, suddenly released by the simple pressure of her head against my heart. I cried for my daughter, for the future stolen from her, for the silence of our home since she left, for the way the world kept turning without her in it. And Sela stayed. 11 seconds. Not moving, not trying to comfort, just being present with me in my pain. When she finally pulled away, her eyes met mine, and for the first time, I saw something there beyond watchfulness, beyond purpose. I saw recognition. One evening, as I sat rereading a letter my daughter wrote me before she passed, a letter I couldn't finish for 5 years, Sela limped over, curled beside me, and placed her head on the folded paper. She didn't move for hours. It was the first time she slept. The letter had been my daughter's last communication, written from her hospital bed, sealed in an envelope with my name. "Read this when I'm gone," she'd said. But I couldn't. Not for 5 years. The pain was too raw, the finality too absolute. That night, with Sela's weight pressing the paper to my lap, I finally read the last paragraph. "Mom, when I'm gone, please don't stop looking for miracles. They're everywhere, especially in the broken places. I'll send you signs. Watch for them. I promise they'll find you when you need them most." Sela's breathing deepened, her body finally relaxing into true sleep. And I wondered, was this what my daughter meant? This strange dog with her mechanical movements and hidden filaments? This creature who found me in a parking lot on a rainy night? I fell asleep with my hand on Sela's side, feeling the steady rise and fall of her breath. For the first time since my daughter died, I didn't dream of hospitals or funeral homes. I dreamed of chapel ruins and underground rooms filled with light, of dogs walking in perfect circles, transmitting messages we weren't meant to hear. I don't know what woke me. Maybe it was the sound of glass shifting. Maybe it was instinct. But I opened my eyes and saw her standing, ears perked, body trembling. Her eyes locked onto the far corner of the room, where the camera we never installed was now blinking red. She growled then, not like an animal, like something remembering how. The growl started low, almost subsonic. I felt it more than heard it, a vibration that seemed to resonate with something deep in my chest. Her eyes never left that corner, where the tiny red light pulsed in perfect time with her growl. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The room felt charged, like the air before lightning strikes. "Sela," I whispered. The growl stopped. The light disappeared. Sela turned to me, and in the darkness, her eyes reflected a green I'd never seen before. Not the typical eyeshine of animals in the dark. This was something else, something artificial. In that moment, I knew with absolute certainty, whatever was in her ears was awake, watching, and it wasn't alone. The next day, I returned to the spot where she was found, behind the chapel ruins. I walked the perimeter, letting her lead. She stopped at a patch of dead earth, sniffed once, and began to dig. 2 inches down, I found something wrapped in cloth. Not a bone, not a toy. A photograph of me in my younger years, holding a dog I don't remember ever owning. The photo was impossible. I'd never owned a dog that looked like the one in the image. Same unusual coat as Sela, same watchful eyes. Yet there I was, maybe 20 years younger, smiling beside this animal I had no memory of. The edges of the photo were burnt as if someone had tried to destroy it. On the back, in handwriting I didn't recognize, Project Shepherd, Subject 7, Handler, E. Shaw. My hands trembled as I turned the photo over again. The woman was me, unmistakably me, but the memory wasn't mine. How could I forget owning a dog? How could I forget being part of something called Project Shepherd? Unless I hadn't forgotten. Unless the memory had been taken. Selah watched me, her eyes reflecting nothing but patient waiting, as if she'd known what we would find, as if she'd been waiting for me to remember. What am I supposed to remember? I asked her, my voice breaking. She turned, looking back toward the clinic, toward home. That night, the man returned. But this time, I didn't answer the door. Selah stood beside me, ears twitching, head tilted toward the ceiling, like she was hearing something far away, or remembering something deeply buried. The knocking became pounding, then silence. Then the phone rang. 3:17 a.m., exactly. I didn't answer. Instead, I pulled out the photo again, studying the face of my younger self. There was something in my eyes, even then. A knowledge. A purpose. What had I been part of? What had I forgotten? The static on the answering machine grew louder, more insistent. Then a voice broke through. Distorted, but clear enough. Dr. Shaw, you activated the recall protocol. Subject 7 has fulfilled her primary function. We are coming to collect. Selah growled again. That same resonant sound that seemed to vibrate through my bones. But this time, she moved toward the answering machine, not away from it. Her ears were fully erect now, no longer pressed flat against her head. The filaments. Whatever they were responding to the voice. I knelt beside her, gently touching her neck. I won't let them take you, I whispered. She looked at me, and in her eyes I saw something I'd never expected. Trust. Something shifted then. A memory, surfacing like a bubble from the depths. Not complete, just fragments. A laboratory. Dogs with electrodes attached to their skulls. A voice explaining, the perfect surveillance system. No one suspects the strays. No one questions when they appear or disappear. And my voice, younger but unmistakably mine. But they're still living beings. They still feel pain, fear. They are tools, Dr. Shaw, nothing more. The memory ended there, leaving me cold and shaking. Had I been part of this? Had I helped create whatever Selah was now? Or had I tried to stop it? The pounding at the door resumed, more insistent. Multiple fists now. They weren't waiting anymore. Selah pressed against my leg, guiding me toward the back of the clinic, to the emergency exit I'd shown her only once. You want us to run? I asked. She nudged me again, more urgently, then looked back at the front of the clinic where shadows now moved behind the frosted glass. We slipped out the back door just as I heard the front door splinter. Into the rain, which had returned as if on cue. Into the night that seemed to welcome us with open arms. I had no plan, no destination. But Selah did. She led, and I followed. Back toward the chapel ruins. Back to where she had been found. Or perhaps back to where she had been sent. I still don't know what was placed inside her ears. I still don't know who they are, or why I was the one to find her. But I do know this. She wasn't lost, she was delivered, and they want her back. But as we disappear into the shadows of the chapel ruins, as the rain washes away our footprints and the night hides our escape, I make a silent promise. To her, to myself, to my daughter, whose last wish was for me to find miracles in broken places. I won't let them take her. Whatever she is, whatever she carries, whatever she knows, she's mine now. My responsibility. My miracle. And perhaps in ways I'm only beginning to remember, she always has been.